Commission meeting order. This is City Commission regular meeting, March 17th, 2025. It's 5 p.m. If you would, please stand and join me in a prayer and a pledge of allegiance. Lord, we thank you for this meeting today. We thank you, Lord, for the business of the city of Clewiston. Thank you, Lord, for your blessing over this city. And, Lord, just the administration and the leaders of this city, we thank you for your guidance. We look to you for your wisdom in every decision that we have to make. We thank you again for those that protect us, our first responders, our police, sheriff, and fire. And Lord, we just give you honor and glory. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Am I the only one that's sweating?
No.
Could you turn that air on somebody?
It is a little warm.
Maybe it's the coat, I don't know.
Just in time.
Jar's right here, paid $1 late.
Okay, I'd ask the city clerk for the roll call. Hey, Dylan.
Amen.
Mayor Pittman,
Here.
Vice Mayor Highslope,
Here.
Commissioner Gardner,
Here.
Commissioner Edmonds, Commissioner Williams,
Here.
City Manager Williams,
Here.
City Attorney Brandenburg.
Here and not a minute late.
You have a quorum, sir.
All right, thank you. Any changes, additions, deletions to the agenda?
Yes,
Yes,
Mayor.
sir.
Alicia, or Lakeisha.
Yes, sir. Could we please remove item number 7, which is ordinance 2025-02 on second reading, amending the code of ordinance for amusement and entertainment? The timing of the second notification would not have given us our 10 days. So if we can please pull that, and it'll be heard on the April 21st.
Okay, all right, we'll pull item 7. It takes a little longer to negotiate the pad. We have new devices we're working with instead of notebooks, so if there's pauses between items, just understand I'm looking things up. I don't know about these guys. Learning how to use this. Okay, let's see, do we have any public comments this evening? I don't
No,
think
sir, I
anyone
have
filled out
no.
a card. I don't see anyone in the audience. Okay, our first item then is a presentation. Randy Maxson, our finance director, and Aaron Cleese from Waterworth.
Hey. Hi, Randy Maxson, Director of Finance. This is going to be similar to what we did last month. Last month, we saw the presentation on water and sewer rates, and tonight we are going to be looking at solid waste, basically garbage disposal. And to start, I will say solid waste is a lot easier to budget and a lot more visibility than water sewer. Solid waste is your big expenses by far is our cost to take the trash over to Lee County landfill, through Lee County Solid Waste is this department's biggest vendor. So a few notes before we get started. Aaron's going to go in about 3 minutes. We're going to go with a presentation similar to talk about our cash flow situation and what we want to try to accomplish with what I believe to be a modest rate increase. But a couple, as we were getting stuff together, a few things that I stood out that I want you guys to at least be aware of. On average, Clewiston sends about 675 tons per month, or about 1,350,000 pounds to Lee County Solid Waste.
How much that 50,000?
What's that?
What was it?
675 tons a month
Right,
is
and
about
then-
what and it's about 1,350,000 pounds per month. With that said, them being our largest vendor this year, they increased you have different rates, tires, horticulture and stuff, but when you consider just garbage, your primary garbage type thing, their rates went from $83.57 per ton, $83.57 to $92.10 a ton. 10% increase, we have to account for that without considering anything else. That is, we have to pass that along. There's no option there. Another interesting fact is when you're looking at this, we spend 3 times more on the disposal of the trash than we do our own payroll in that department. So it is a, like I said, it makes it easy when your one vendor is your primary driver of your costs in the department. And currently, whereas electric fund and water sewer fund have a reserve, solid waste does not. It has a checkbook with about $380,000 in it as we speak tonight, and if we lose one truck, that money's gone. So that's kind of where we are. We're, it's in its spot doing its thing. It needs a little attention, and that's one of the reasons why Aaron and I are back, to kind of give you a visual on where we're at financially and where it looks like we're going to be. Can you hear me okay, Aaron? Do you want to maybe go over to the presentation? We can kind of get it rolling. Now, remember last month, it's Waterworth, same company. I don't know. We can maybe save a few minutes with some of what they do, but I'll leave that up to Aaron and I'll interject.
Randy, I have a quick question.
Sure.
In Waterworks, and maybe this should be for Aaron, as you go through the presentation, did y'all review the contract that we have? I think it's through Hendry County.
It
And
is.
then pass through to Lee County, basically.
I've contacted them, and we don't have a lot of negotiating. We have no negotiating
No
power. in this, so
It's under the county.
It's under county, and and it's not like we get a bulk discount. If 1 ton or 1,000 tons, it's the same price for us. Which will lead me to one last thing as we wrap up regarding a small issue regarding second tippers at residential houses and how we discount it now, and how it's a good idea to remove that discount and just charge a flat rate per tipper. But we can cover that in the end. Is that did I answer your question?
Yes, you
reasonably?
did.
Okay.
You did.
Okay, Aaron, you wanna kind of get that fired up, and we'll take a look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Randy. And thanks everyone for having me here. Maybe some of you, like Randy said, might recognize me from last time I was here with my colleague Naya before, but my name is Erin Cleese, and I'm happy to be here. And yeah, just a quick little blurb on Waterworth, since I know you've seen it before, but just as a reminder, it is a financial forecasting tool. And basically what I'm going to be showing you today is just a visual representation of the finances on the solid waste fund. And like Randy said, kind of just looking at the cash trajectory and looking at a few different scenarios following forward. So also just quickly as well, my role here is not as a consultant, but rather just as an expert in the Waterworth tool itself. And I'm here to facilitate any questions you might have about anything you see that I'm about to show you. So with that, I will go ahead and start sharing my screen. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So once again, I know that most of you, if not all of you in the room, have seen Waterworth before, so I'll spare you the belabored explanation of what you're seeing here, but just in a quick snapshot, just as a reminder, what we're looking at right now is the solid waste fund. And to break each individual piece down, we'll start with the operating expenses with our dollar amount on the vertical axis and time in years on the horizontal axis. We have current debt service in a lighter blue that shows up on top, as well as what are called capital improvements in the tool, but we know are primarily vehicle replacements. So that's represented by this green color here. And all of those colors make up our expenses for the model. And then layering on top of that, we have our collection fees, any other operating revenue, developer contributions, non-operating revenue, and finally any borrowed funds. And all of that together kind of makes up the revenues versus the expenses. And the best way to quickly interpret the graph is to see whether or not the revenues are stacking up with the background expenses. So any year, for instance, like 2022 year, that we have a year where the revenues are coming in higher than the background expenses, that represents a surplus for the year. And for instance, in the projected 2028 year, we're projecting we're going to have slightly more expenses than revenues. That's going to represent your deficit for that year. And all that together affects how the cash position line trends. So anytime you have that revenue bar higher than the background expense is when you're going to see your revenue or your cash position rather trending upwards. And similarly, when you have the gaps with the revenue bars coming in a bit shorter than the background expenses, that's where you're going to see your cash position trending downward. And finally, what we have in this model as well is a little red dotted line called the operating threshold. And in this particular case, this just represents it represents 10% of the operating expenses of the fund for contingent expenses. And what we would like to see is just not have the cash position line ever dropping below this red dotted line, and use that as kind of a guardrail for making sure that our cash is staying in a healthy position. So that was kind of the rapid fire reminder of what the Waterworth visuals look like. Are there any questions before I move on to the scenarios that Randy's prepared?
All good.
Okay, perfect. So the first scenario that Randy and I were working on is just represents a one-time 12.6% increase to the collection fees across the entire fund. So as you can see, the main difference here is that brings our cash position line up and kind of makes that slope a little bit less steep. So now we're not crossing the threshold until 2031 and not crossing the zero line until sometime before 2032. So that's the first scenario that Randy wanted to show. And then the second one is also a 12.6% increase. And mind you, this is in 2026, by the way, this increase. And the second scenario is a 12.6% increase. And then every year thereafter, so starting in 2027, a 3% increase on the collection fees. And you can see how even just that, with keeping up with inflation, will allow there to be sufficient money to keep the contingent expenses in the fund, to cover vehicle replacements with cash, and to keep that cash flow looking healthy. Any questions or anything on that? Or Randy, if you had anything you wanted to discuss afterwards?
No, I think it's important to point out that the green, which is the capital, all of the reserves for this account is basically lining up to buy the new trucks. This year we got a couple new trucks, and so you'll see that in our 26 budget, our capital's really low. I think we've got some dumpsters in there. But, the equipment's in good shape right now, but we do need to look out, as in our replacement cycles over the next couple of years, as we're replacing those trucks to.
They normally look 5 to 7 years is what you should be swapping out your trucks. That's when you start having issues. So that's kind of what we're targeting.
Right.
It's 5 to 7 years.
So, but that's the biggest thing in capital, which is much easier again versus water sewer, where you've got 2 different plants that can break down at any time, plus all the transmission lines and all that other good stuff in the piping. So again, that's why solid waste has the visibility is a lot cleaner, and it's a little bit easier to project. So these numbers are confident with these numbers. Now, Aaron, I think we're ready to move on if you are.
Yeah, I mean, that's just about all I had to show you.
I thought we had a bunch of pages, didn't we? No, that was it, wasn't it?
Randy.
I prepared a slide deck for you that I'd be happy to walk through as well. But in terms of what the slide deck covers, this was it. It was just the three scenarios. One showing the fund with no increase, which, by the way, I don't know if I really explained that super well. This is what the fund would look like if we had just no increase on the collection fees going forward. And then the difference between this scenario, the scenario in which we do a 12.6% increase in 2026, and then this scenario where we have the 3% increases after that as well.
Is there
Short
a
and sweet.
dollar amount attached to the capital or the cash that we can see to, make sure we have enough money to buy the truck when it comes to?
We will have to go into the spreadsheet down below. Can you pull that up, Aaron, on the capital page?
Yeah. Which would you like me to look at the spreadsheet for the 3% increase scenario or the baseline, or which one would you prefer to look at?
I think the capital in either is the same as far as, because we're looking at the capital expenditures.
You want to see the capital itself. Okay, here we go.
So this is our breakout. So you can see we're in 2025, and the equipment, the reason why our cash flow is lower right now is we've bought those pieces of equipment. So, we've spent the $675,000. I'm specifically looking at that number, 226,000 and the 449,000. As you can see, because we have the new equipment plus the purchases that we had, next year we're not anticipating vehicles for 26 or 27. So that's why our cash flow at this moment can kind of get spread out a little bit. Even if we didn't raise anything, have no contingency of something. So there's the dollars as they are, and you can see the breakout. And we've actually broken it out per vehicle because they don't have a lot of equipment. So commercial front loader 1, which is a 2023 vehicle, I think we're getting rid of that one. That's why that's that very first item. That's why it's an older vehicle, and we're going to use it until it dies, and it's not necessarily on the list to be replaced. But you get into commercial vehicles too, you can see that we've got it being replaced 2028, then again in 2033, we're having it on a 5-year cycle. So we do have
With
it
your,
broken up.
with your 12% and then 3%, you cover those costs running forward.
It projected, yes. Now, I haven't anticipated Lee County raising their rates 10% a year. You know, we put in 3% a year, so if they go up 10%, you know, we have to make an assumption. I got a verbal from the director, I can't remember his name, sorry. They don't anticipate that, but, you know, if something happens and maybe they don't get all the disaster dollars they're expecting from the government, maybe they have to raise the rates more, and then we're going to be in a spot to where maybe 3% won't be good.
We don't actually have the contract. I think we need to create that connection to Lee County to allow us, hey, we're increasing the rates this year. And I think right now it's going to be pretty much every year a certain percentage. They're going to increase the rates. So I'll work on that, making a connection with Lee County.
I wish I could remember his name. I've reached out to him. Next time he's over here, when he's
You're
gonna
talking
bring-
about LaBelle?
No, Lee County.
Lee
Yeah,
County.
because he comes over and visits our transfer station. The way our trash gets over there is we have a transfer station here in town. We don't have to drive it to Lee County. We bring it over to the transfer station, which is right next to our compound, basically. And, you know, so that saves a lot of wear and tear on our vehicles. I don't want to go down the road of saying, you know, last year we did have to use Glades County dump for a little bit while the station was being repaired, the Lee County Transfer Station. But in that time, we set one of our trucks on fire and wrecked another one. So, you know, it's best that we don't put as many miles on our vehicles as, we need to minimize that. And also it would shorten the lifespan of our trucks if we were driving 2-3 hours a day, every single vehicle over to Glades dump. But we just find that long-term to be not feasible. I mean, ideally, Hendry County opens their own dump, but I don't see that happening. You know, that would probably be the most savings. But I agree, maybe you and I can meet with him. He promised me a tour to give me a ring when he comes to visit this site. He says he does it monthly or every 6
let's
weeks.
do that.
And so I have reached out to him, and he did, like you said, anticipate approximate 3%, but he obviously can't commit to that for the long term.
So, is the increase something you're asking for now or at budget time, or?
What I would like to do with both water and sewer and solid waste is, I was going to try to have the water and sewer resolution for you tonight, but there's some deadlines that I didn't know about regarding notice that needs to be sent out with the invoices and stuff. But I was hoping to have both of them effective as of June 30th, if we could. It would help, you know, to have a 3-month head start on the budget. It would give us a little bit of cushion with these numbers as well. Just as you know, like I said, this fund doesn't have a reserve account. It's just got its checkbook, and one vehicle would wipe that out right now.
We're in good shape right now. I think we will be for the next
Equipment-wise,
4 or
yeah,
5
yeah.
years. We've got a backup, you know, side loaders. So we're running, we have 3 side loaders. So 2 of them are brand new. So, and they've been running pretty well. And
but
we've
this
cut the
department-
route too, which has taken a lot of pressure. You know, we do the north side and on Mondays and the south side Tuesday, whereas in the past they were doing the whole town. So it's taken a lot. I mean, the trucks used to run from 6 in the morning on heavy holidays, whatever, it'd be 7 at night. They're done by noon. So a lot less stress on the trucks. So that's one of the things too we've done to take that pressure off those trucks. So it should be
And I believe we think that our truck replacement cycle is conservative. You know, we might be able to get that extra year out of them. But it would be nice to just have a little bit of money set aside for the rainy day. If we fully used our 10% contingency that we're required to have in the budget, we'd be out of money in this department. And one thing I would like, if we answered those questions, is just to circle back on the tipper, which is probably going to be the most interesting to whoever is listening right now that happens to have two tippers. The way our residential tippers work is that we charge $31.08 per month, and the 12% increase would move that rate to exactly $35 per month. Now, 143 residents have a second tipper that we've offered to them at $12 a month. And I don't fully understand why it's at a discounted rate, primarily because whether we send 1,000 pounds of trash to Lee County or 100,000 pounds, it's the same price for us. So it seems reasonable that that rate should be the same for the customers as well. We don't get really a bulk discount. So to having a second tipper would be equivalent to having a second 8-yard dumpster. And if we filled that up, it'd be really expensive, So that would be the other thing that would be a little bit different on the presentation is for those 143 customers, they would see an increase from $12 a month to $35 a month. Now, they don't have to have the second tipper. They can turn it in, or they can continue to use it. It would be their call. But it seems reasonable to charge the same rate regardless of how many you're using.
I know Randy just mentioned Glades County, and I know that the agreement we have is through Hendry County or Lee County. And years ago, when we had this discussion, I think it was in 2019, 2020, somewhere in there, we did look at other options, and we decided at that time that, we didn't want to change what we were doing because we figured out raising the rates because they had been so low for so many years. It helped us get to where we're at right now. I mean, in 2023, there was $1 million, right?
Yeah.
And a little bit of the 2023, it's a little bit deceptive because there was $1 million loan taken out for the three pieces of equipment that were bought that year.
Okay.
So
that's not reserved, yeah. So
it's not really reserved. That was just money from a loan.
my question is, are we going to look, I don't know when this contract's coming up with Hendry County, right? Or with the agreement. Are we going to look at that and see if there's other options for the future for transferring? Glades County was mentioned. I don't know if there's, if that's possible or if not possible. I know we looked at Belglade at one time, taking it to there. That wasn't feasible when we looked at it before.
Mm-hmm.
We might not have a choice. I just think we should look at it because of the fact of the increases that we're receiving now.
Absolutely.
I think when we went to Glades County, my concern is, which Randy mentioned, is the mileage. We changed out a lot of tires, and the trucks are gone for quite a while.
So it was our trucks,
Yeah, and again, we wrecked one, and we had other issues with trucks.
There's also a 3-hour round trip, basically.
Yeah, it's a 3-hour.
So each truck,
Glades
It makes it
County.
a full day.
well, it's 45 minutes to get out to the
Ortona.
you might be able to get
Oh,
a
so
lot
it's
of it.
Ortona, okay,
Yeah,
so it's,
yeah.
okay.
So we can't, we have no place, at least with
Well, that's,
the Lee County
no,
Transfer
probably not.
Station.
They come here, yeah.
And so time is a lot of it, because wages, we saw a lot more overtime last year during the period we had them. Plus, we would probably lose, best guess, at least a year, if not more, on our replacement cycle because of
Okay.
wear and tear.
All right.
Trust me, we
And-
considered that
and-
a
I
lot.
think
There's a lot of
cutting-
conversation with that.
Yeah, cutting the routes the way we have, the trucks will run a little longer. Again, we have spent money to get this fleet in shape because it was in bad shape. And I think we will be fine these next 4 or 5 years for sure. And then that's when you'll start cycling trucks, again, one every year, maybe 2. But you'll have the reserves with this.
And the increases, are they tying it to the upgrade at this facility or? Because we have a brand new facility or
Yeah.
upgraded facility.
Well, because it's countywide, I'm assuming that, you know, when they did their budget last year, same as us, and they just pushed it through on us all at once. I can't answer that. I can only speculate that, you know, as far as why it all happened at once. And I don't think, I'm sorry, I don't have the answer to this. I don't think this is a like a 5-year contract with set rates. I think it's year to year, and we've agreed to go with them. But again, I don't want to say I took the lazy route, but we're piggybacking off of the
County.
county website. I did ask him if we could negotiate separately on my phone call, and he said no. He just gave me a,
Well, it's because of the fact that it's not by a tonnage amount. It's the same flat fee, right? So we thought we were saving money, I'm sure, when they originally did this, to go with the county, right? Piggyback on their contract.
yes. You know, if there is a discounted rate, it's built into the you know, and we obviously we did not have a seat at that table
Okay.
as far as the negotiations of those
So you
rates.
guys are going to look at that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Does the county not have any ability to try to negotiate with them?
Oh, yeah.
I can only assume that they have. I believe this was a good deal. I honestly think, I mean, with the, I bet, and again, it's speculation, I'm sorry, but with the last couple of years with all the hurricanes, I think that Lee County, the landfill is stressed out more than it usually is as far as the amount of stuff that it's bringing in. And I think they looked at their cost, again, speculation, and just said, we don't have a choice. We have to raise these up to cover our costs. But again, that's speculation. It's common. It would make sense to me, and that's the best answer I can give you.
Thank you.
I think it's a year-to-year contract. As I can remember in the past, we would kind of have to wait at budget time to see what the increase was going to be.
Mhm.
Now, we never moved the rate until 2020, 2021. But it's not going to go down. We all know that.
Yeah,
So, I
and
think-
and it's a good pop. I mean, it was a plus 10% pop, and it's like, we're not in a position to eat that, you know. And I wish we were, but we have to match that and try to build up a little bit of reserve in there. So.
Something, Jason?
I mean, at the end of the day, Lee County's it's the best workout for us. There's nowhere else for us to go that's feasible, time and mileage wise. I mean, shot both of those out. We can't sit down and negotiate our own rates. We got to depend on what the county.
We're going to try. We can try. I mean, I had about a 10-minute phone call, you know, leading up to this. You know, if we sit down with the city manager and their director, maybe, but it seemed like this was kind of a nice set contract. We're with Hendry County, and
Right. And
we can pursue it,
regardless,
especially as we go into budget here in the next couple months. We can reach out a little bit further and have a more confident answer.
Right. And regardless, we're going to have to hit the 10% that they did. I mean, we're going to have to match. If not, you know, kind of put us in a really bad spot. So at the end of the day, matching what they did, I don't think it's bad. I mean, it's a stab at us, but
And
is what it
and
is.
you know, I'm in town too. It hits me just like it hits
Right.
everybody else, and it's just something that you know, when you look at the numbers, it just kind of makes sense that you want to do something like this. Could we decide to?
Hey, any other questions?
No, sir.
Okay.
Good job.
So yeah, and so what I'm going to get with Lakeisha and Danny, and we'll see about getting the resolutions, and you know, we'll see if logistically, if y'all like the September 30th date, which would give us enough time to get our flyers out and the utility bills, and we
June
can get
30th or September?
I'm sorry, it's June 30th. I
Okay.
apologize for that. That was a
Yeah.
slip of my tongue.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you for
problem.
catching
Okay.
that.
Gosh, that's
Okay.
far.
Aaron, I think, any more questions for Aaron, anybody? Oh.
I don't think so.
Appreciate their
Thank you,
work on
Aaron.
forecasting
thank
for
you.
us.
Thanks.
All right,
Thanks, Aaron.
good. Thanks very much. I hope to see you all soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Good?
we're good.
Okay, any questions on the consent agenda?
Move that we approve.
Second.
Motion by Gardner, second by Highslope, to approve the consent agenda.
Who made the motion, sir?
I did.
Motion by Gardner, second by Highslope. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Hang on, I want the large print. Got to get it on the
Number 8.
screen. How do you go back? Oh, that was easy.
I gotcha.
Oh. Okay, item 7 has been pulled from the agenda, so we'll move on to item 8. Consideration of ordinance 2025-03 on the first reading. I'm going to read this by title. Ordinance 2025-03, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, amending the Clewiston Code of Ordinances, amending Chapter 54 offenses, creating Article 1, sexual offender residency requirements, providing for an inclusion in the Code of Ordinance, conflict, severability, providing for an effective date. I'll declare the public hearing open. And if anyone from the audience would like to speak, you're more than welcome to come up at this time. You would please state your name and address.
I have a public comment card that I did officially.
Thank you.
Well, we got to cut you to a minute and a half then. No, I'm kidding.
Well, before I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm here to voice my support of this ordinance. When I was made aware of this deficiency in end of December, beginning of January, I immediately reached out to my commissioners, my city manager, and I just want to thank you all for being so receptive to that. Like, I'm glad to live in a community where we are not having to fight over that. And like, I felt like there was no opposition and overwhelming support in shoring this up and making sure that our public areas and our schools and bus stops are a safe place for our community's children. And I just want to commend everybody for the verbal support that I've received in my lobbying of the individual members of the commission, and thank City Manager Danny Williams for just spearheading this and ensuring that it got on the fast track to make this deficiency right in our community. So just thank you, and I appreciate the work that you guys are doing to make Clewiston a great place to raise kids.
Stephanie, I know that after you called me, I went back and remembered we did have an ordinance. In 2014, I know we had an ordinance. Now, during that, somewhere along there, our entire Muni Code was scrubbed, and anything with state law, that state law, basically there was something on state law. It was, our city ordinances we had a lot of city ordinances removed. Now, I'm not sure how that one was removed, but you brought it to our attention, and I appreciate you bringing it to our attention, because I know in 2014, I did find an article, that we did have a city ordinance, and it did limit. Now, it didn't state the limit of what we had, but that both the city of Clewiston and the city of LaBelle had a sexual predator ordinance. And so I don't know how it happened, but it did happen. So thank you for your diligence in bringing it to our attention. And
I'm just grateful to have a community and commissioners that there was zero pushback, and absolutely the embracing, wanting to do the right thing and to make the community a safer place for kids. And I'm just thankful for that. And I know I come up here and give you guys the business on the things I don't like, but I also want to come up here and give you kudos for what you're doing right. And I absolutely believe 100% the right thing for Clewiston and Clewiston's children. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience? I will declare the public hearing closed. Any comments from the commission?
I want to just kind of mimic Molly just for a second and say, thank you to Ms. Busen for just finding that deficiency and helping the city get back on the right path, on the path that obviously we all want to be on, and keeping our kids safe.
I'll make the motion to approve ordinance number 2025-03 on first reading, amending the Clewiston Code of Ordinance, amending Chapter 54 offenses, creating Article 1 sexual offender residency requirements.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Gardner, second by Highslope. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
One more reading.
Okay. Give me just a second here. Oh, I messed up again.
Are you in here?
Oh, it went away. Oh, how about that sugar festival?
I thought it was great, Mayor.
Is it in there?
No rain.
Did
wasn't
JD already
blistering
leave?
hot.
No, we'll get it. We got to hit the right button here.
You want to read mine?
That one.
Home.
An iPad it isn't, just
Very
saying.
I'm going to note that, Molly. iPad.
I know, but trying to save trees, Travis.
That's it.
Hey, we got to move up.
Or he can be left behind.
Ma'am,
He can be left behind. He'll catch up with us.
if we don't get paper, I don't think anybody else should.
No, can't do that. That's how we make money.
OneDrive, I think he told me. Okay, we're working on it.
Doing good. Doing great.
We'll find it. Hold on.
You have yours,
I have to
Jason?
pass it down to Lakeisha.
Yeah, you can pass it down.
Like me to read it behind time? Hopefully I won't miss this. Maybe I shouldn't use the pointer. Okay, is this the next one?
Item 9.
Item 9.
Okay, item 9 on the agenda is the consideration of ordinance 2025-04 on the first reading, amending the Code of Ordinance, Chapter 22, Business, creating Article 8, Vacation Rentals. This is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, amending the Clewiston Code of Ordinance, Chapter 22, Business, creating Article 8, Vacation Rentals, providing for inclusion in the Code of Ordinance, conflict, severability, and providing for an effective date. I'll declare the public hearing open, and if anyone would like to speak from the audience, you're more than welcome. I don't see anybody, so I'm going to ask the manager to give us an overview, or
I'm going to ask Dylan, who worked on this for us. Mayor, I'll have some comments after the fact.
Absolutely. Nice to see all of you. This was brought as sort of a commission-driven request. Some comments were made. We're seeing a lot more vacation rentals pop up within city limits. Right now, the code doesn't have anything at all regarding these types of uses. Now, you are limited under state law in how you can regulate these. Most of it is preempted to the state. However, local governments can warrant inspections for compliance with the Florida Building Code and Fire Code. So what this ordinance does would essentially create an inspection process where a building department would go out, take a look at these units, make sure that they're following all the health safety requirements of the building and fire code before issuing that permit that would allow them to operate. And if they fail to do so, you can then go after these uses with the code process for failing to obtain those permits. Happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
To me, this links it to the RV situation that we have. These RVs are becoming Airbnbs and are being advertised, and that's why I hope the P&Z board comes back and thinks a little bit about a policy or an ordinance so we can have access in the back to oversee these things, because they're popping up everywhere, and that's where these things are located, is mostly in backyards. Again, last week I think I found 4. We did address them, but again, it is an issue, and I'm glad that we're going this direction.
So with this, we'd be able to see the RV in the backyard and run a fire code inspection on it and be able to push somebody in there. If we're in there on fire code and there is somebody living there, then we can go ahead and send out code enforcement on the living process.
Yeah, I believe it's kind of iffy there, but again, once we address P and Z, I believe we'll answer that real quick. We get that cleared
I
up.
don't think it just gives us like free reign to go in people's backyard. you
Yeah.
know.
No,
No, not at all, but it gets us a step closer
Yes.
to controlling more and more of the RV situation.
Well, and I think for me, seeing there's a lot of Airbnbs that have popped up, and I get it. People do want to, maximize their investment, but that we don't have guidelines within the city limits. I think that is a concern. And even though state law, we can't say you can't have an Airbnb in a residential neighborhood, an R1, R2, R3.
Right.
But at least this way, we know where they're at, they're registered, operating legally, and that there's inspections. And so I think which is important. Because,
If you don't mind, I'll make a comment on this real quick. 1 minute.
30 seconds. Travis Reese, Community Development Director, Fire Chief. The real reason for this ordinance is transient and non-transient residents. And what I mean by that is your typical residential units, your single-family homes, your two-family duplexes. People are living in those long-term. They move in there. They're there for more than a month, maybe years. They know where the exits are. They know their home. They know the rules of the community. When you have this kind of new internet-based transient lodging coming to residential areas, we really didn't have a mechanism for that. You have a mechanism in your apartment buildings, your multifamily, your hotels, your motels. There's rules at the state level. There's rules at the city level where, in the middle of the night, you know what the rules are. You know who to call for 911. You know the address. And by bringing this ordinance in, those rules in the Florida State Fire Code will now be applicable to these single-family units if they're used as transient lodging. So there is a real safety benefit of that. If you've ever been in a place and you're tired, you come in and you rent for the night, or you rent it for a couple nights, you go to sleep, and all of a sudden you're awakened by something that startles you. You don't know where you're at. You don't know how to get out. So if you would entertain this ordinance, the staff definitely supports it. I think it's well needed. It does many things for you, but that's probably the most important, is to give those same protections to people who are renting units in areas that are not inspected and protected by the Florida Fire Prevention Code. So it will bring in certain things that in a single-family home that they're not typically seeing. They will have to have their smoke detectors. They will have to have an extinguisher. They will have to have the name of the person who owns it and who to call for 911 and any other things the city deems necessary. You may have garbage days, maybe there, noise ordinances may be there.
yeah, and fire alarms.
Well, I
Correct.
believe we have the noise ordinance.
We have it in
covers-
place, but what I'm getting at is a transient person would have no idea
Well, true.
Of what those ordinances are. So if you pass this ordinance, then the staff can put those policies and just make the person applying for the application, then post those somewhere inside the house. And when I reached out to some of my other colleagues in other fire districts, they also issue a permit. It's visible from the front of the home. So law enforcement, as they respond to a noise complaint or any type of complaint, they can pull that number up in their own dispatch and find an emergency contact if no one's answering the door. Because again, it is single-family homes, you're limited what you can do. But once they've identified by that placard or that decal that this is actually a possible transient rental location, then it kind of changes. They're not dealing with a resident; they may be dealing with a guest. So I just want to make those comments
I like
for
the
you.
ordinance. I think it accomplishes what you want it to accomplish, but I can also appreciate that it doesn't over-regulate, that short-term rental.
think
Because we
Airbnb
don't
is
want to
great.
squash it.
No.
We want these people to come to Clewiston and, enjoy the lake and shop in our stores, all those good
Right,
things.
and I think you're absolutely right. And I don't believe it would stop
Appreciate
that.
No, for
But
sure
in full
not.
disclosure, when we get in to look at the apartment or at the unit or single-family home, if it is in violation of other city ordinances, they will have to make those corrections before we would issue the permit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something we typically don't do inside the home. That's your sanctuary. We're not looking to get into single-family homes or even duplexes, long-term rentals. That's not what we're looking for.
But these are
This is the
businesses.
short term. But all those
Yeah.
ordinances are applicable today. We just don't go in and look at your personal home. But being transient, being a short-term rental, we would be looking at all those things.
Let me give you a current scenario. The guy down the street here in Ventura, we know someone's living in his backyard. He's got all kinds of equipment, RVs, buses, all kinds of things. Will this ordinance?
It really would not. As the manager pointed out, that's something we need to address on a different ordinance. That's having someone living possibly in a dwelling that's not, or an RV that's not being rented out as a short-term rental. It would be, I'll correct myself, it would be applicable if they advertised that. If we found where someone was advertising on the internet, or someone had a flyer up, or, we found that they had applied at the state DBPR for a short-term vacation rental license and failed to disclose it to us, that would get us in there under this current ordinance.
We have found a
But
few of
anything
those.
new would go, we would have to
Okay, well,
address
let's
under our
work on
zoning
that
ordinance.
Yeah.
That one would be after this one. but
Yeah,
yes.
after we get
Yes,
this
the
one.
manager has several times mentioned that we'd like to have something.
Put it on the list.
You're already on that.
And we've been working on that,
Yeah,
so
I like
just
this.
putting them in place.
Travis, real quick, I know that you mentioned the permit, but there is a permit requirement. You're just saying the posting of the permit.
Correct. So a couple of things, that if you approved it,
Have
it would come back for a
changed? Can that be
fee.
added to it? Is that something that we, so if first responders come to the house, I don't know how it's,
Oh, we wouldn't be suggested that they would be paying a fee for that.
no, but I'm saying the permit to be posted, you were talking about a posting. This does.
Correct. It would be like a decal with
Okay.
with a number on it.
Or
Like an
external.
ADT sign or something. in your
Right, and that could be
window.
handled through the application process, not necessarily has to be in here.
Okay,
You direct
got
the
it.
manager, that that's what you want, and that's what we will do. I'm just telling you, that's what other cities have done that have these ordinances, and it seems to work for them. It wouldn't have to be something addressed in here unless council thinks otherwise. It could be as a policy of the rental program.
Okay. That sounds good to me.
Thank you. I apologize, that's more than a minute.
Yeah.
Thanks, Travis.
No more paper, Lakeisha.
Informative, it was all right.
He did that on his own.
I printed one, so just went over it today.
I'll declare the public hearing closed. Any other comments or questions by the commission? Entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve ordinance number 2025-04.
I second that.
Motion by Hoslope, second by Williams. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, if I'm on the right page, we're under staff comments.
You are.
You
City
on the
manager, right,
page.
Mayor?
City manager.
Yeah, I want to take time to thank city staff who worked very, very hard during Sugarfest. It's a 3-day event, basically, but to put everything together and pick up 14.2 tons of garbage, that's what we got this year. Last year was 12 tons, so it did increase. But again, those guys work hard. There's 2 shifts. Ashley, she's took her old role and helped Julia deploy, who does an excellent job. Worked on it, put it together. Of course, my wife participated, so bless y'all's hearts. So anyway, I just, again, thank the city staff. I can't say enough. They do it year in, year out, and it's amazing. And it looks great the next day, like no one's been there. So, and it was a great Sugarfest, and PD, everybody, I appreciate it. You did an excellent job, Mayor. When you did the prayer, I thought that was excellent. Great job.
Everyone did great, yes.
Yep, that's it for me.
City attorney?
I wish everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day. I was going to wear my green suit tonight, but unfortunately it's at the dry cleaners. Maybe next year. That's all I have.
Actually, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
City commission comments. We'll start with Mr. Williams, Commissioner Williams.
Back up what Danny said, it was a great weekend. There was definitely 25,000 plus people. I mean, I'm not sure on the number, but it was up there. All the bands were great. Friday night was even excellent. Friday night's becoming a big thing for Sugarfest, and you guys do a great job putting it together. I agree with that. I haven't heard one negative comment about it. Haven't heard anything negative about our last meeting and our little increase that we went up on. Nobody's jumped on us about that, so that was all well and good. And other than that, everything's running smooth as it should.
Good. Commissioner Haslett?
I'll echo the Sugar Festival comments. It was a great event. I think it was our largest one yet.
I think so.
Both Friday and Saturday.
Yep.
So
Friday
I
was
know
great.
that the city worked hard. I know that Julia worked hard and the Sugar Festival Committee worked hard, and it's very much appreciated. And that's all I've got today.
All right, great. Commissioner Gardner?
Just to echo again the comments about the Sugar Fest. But I think one of the things, I mean, it was a great event, is that there's a lot of fundraising that happens over that weekend. Different folks have, they're whether they're selling cookies for a church there, or whether they're, whatever they're doing, or I will, from firsthand experience, the Friends of the Library, the amount of people that came in, they were wanting to buy, the books for $1 and also help out with a raffle. I mean, Friday night, Jason, you mentioned that. There were folks that were there Friday night to listen to the concert that couldn't be there for the event on Saturday, and they were stopping. The museum was overwhelmed with a response when they were open of people coming to see the Clewiston Museum. And I think it's just a good trend that it's, yes, Sugar Festival gets them here because it was a lot of out-of-towners that came to both locations or another, just to the festival itself, but that there is a benefit, citywide. And I'm sure that the shops, the retail shops as well, those that were open even briefly, saw an uptick in people coming in and shopping as well. And so, I'm sure the food restaurants, everybody, not some, because some people just don't want a food truck. They went to a restaurant to eat. So I just think it's overall a very good economic benefit to the community, as well as just showcasing our town. But I do have one question. When we talked about the Airbnb and transient lodging, non-transient lodging and rentals, I think that we've made a distinction that they're different, and so therefore we're not inspecting rental properties as we used to in the past to make sure that they have the fire safety, all the other things. Am I correct in that?
So the ordinance you looked at this evening specifically relates to temporary. It's less
Right.
than 30-day rentals.
Right.
Now, is the question relating to rentals
Like
generally?
an annual lease,
An
most
annual
people have an
lease.
annual lease on a rental, and I know at one time we were doing inspections to make sure before we turned the power on that the house was safe. And I think we've done away with that because I think that there were some conflicts, or we thought that there were some conflicts. So I don't know, if that's something that should be looked at again, and that we could check state law on that. Because I think that, to me, the fire safety issue is a big issue when you're renting a property and we don't know if there's fire alarms in there or not, and whose responsibility is it? Is it us as a city that before we turn the power on to a unit or to a home, that everything's as it should be? I don't know. I know we didn't do the businesses that way. To my understanding, it was just residential property. So I'd like for us to look at that again to make sure that we're doing what we need to be doing, following state law on rentals as well, long-term rentals. A couple more points. I had the opportunity today to meet the Marshall's regional manager, April 24th. They've hired folks, and they'll be sending information to the city. But I'm looking forward to that. I think it's great news. And then just right beside it, from my understanding, and Danny, you can probably tell me, is that the Sonny's property has been sold to Culver's, and that there will be demolishing the existing Sonny's building and building a Culver's on that property. So, and just going back to the Marshalls, I think they're looking at anywhere from about 60 jobs.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So they were very pleased with the response of the folks from the community to apply for those jobs. So April 24th is what I was given and that they would be sending information here. So.
Good news.
Is that it? Your
Yeah, I'm
points?
sorry, that's it.
Okay, I too will echo the Sugar Festival. As Sugar's people, our people did awesome. I know they're going to have a debrief, and the things they debriefed that they saw, no one else saw, because it was really, to the public, it was really a great time. Everyone that I saw, my daughter has friends from Fort Myers, and 24 of those friends came over to the Sugar Festival. So it's getting bigger, and the word's getting out more. I think next year it's going to be even more people. and maybe we need to make arrangements, and some of our points we saw will definitely improve on. But all in all, thank you for endless hours on Saturday for our city staff and those that were out there. The only other thing I have is, don't forget, tomorrow we're having the grand opening of 3 parks. Any of the commissioners, I think we're going to meet at the youth center at 4 o'clock. So if anyone would like to go and to the ribbon cutting of the parks, be at the youth center at 4 o'clock. And I think we're going to maybe drive around to the parks, and great job by the rec department getting the equipment installed, and the parks are already in use. But we're going to make a big deal out of it. I think a while back we said we need to showcase the positive side of Clewiston.
Right.
So that's what we're doing. And with that, I don't have anything else.
Move that we
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
We are adjourned.
Good deal. There's one item